Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Audrey and this is Audrey Curates. Whoop whoop. Welcome back everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Audrey, as I said a few minutes ago, and today is another Museum Monday. And since I had started the Why I Hate Museums last week or the week before, I wanted to continue on and do part 2. I shared the video on some platforms and I managed to get some people to actually answer and comment, and we had a great discussion on why museums sometimes have different programming to different people and how sometimes museums are not accessible. And I wanted to do this part 2 because there are more points I want to come up with, and if you didn't see part 1, I would recommend watching it. It doesn't add a lot to this video, but it is a continuation of this article I found in the Telegraph, and it is titled 21 Reasons Why I Hate Museums. Last time I ended at point 10, and today I am hoping to finish and wrap up this article while also giving you my point of view and rant on certain museums. Let's continue. There's nothing fun for adults. Why is innovation solely employed for younger visitors? Do they really believe adults are sufficiently entertained by a neatly arranged collection of pewter spoons? I tend to agree, especially when it comes to Maltese museums. I think they lack a bit of activities when it comes to adult audiences. I have seen cultural organizations that delve into theatre or cinema having these kinds of audiences. However, when it comes to museums, I have never actively sought out activities. In Malta, I believe most of their income is from school groups and younger children and their families, but I have never really seen the same level of activities that UK museums, for example, do applied in Maltese museums. In the UK, I think I've seen story cafes for the elderly. There were drawing sessions for teens and young adults, and family activities which happen in Malta as well. But I have never seen an initiative in Malta where it caters for these younger audiences and young adult audiences. So I think Maltese museums can perhaps copy or adopt and adapt instead of copy. They're too crowded, in no small part because most people make a beeline to the only painting they've heard of, resulting in scenes like this, and they show a picture of people surrounding the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. I have heard that there is this kind of chaos when it comes to the Mona Lisa. I haven't been to the Louvre, but when we were trying to go there, we were planning to go at about 9 AM in the morning, even earlier. These popular museums tend to gather a lot of tourists, and tourists come to see specific paintings and specific collections, and they have perhaps only 1 day or 2 days in the city, so they need to see anything and everything they can. I have been as well to the Vatican museums, where they have the Sistine Chapel, and when we went early, but then people started to trickle in, and it ended up with about 100 people in the Sistine Chapel, and it was very crowded and chaotic. I also had an experience in the Uffizi, where there were a lot of people, and the Roman baths last year, where there were too many people with their audio guides, and if you wanted to see something small or a particular map, you had to wait about 5 minutes until the audio guide finished, and you can actually start your own audio guide. Some museums tend to have a lot of visitors, which is great economically, but when it comes to crowd control and the overall experience of the museum, it gets very difficult, especially for me, who is a person that doesn't like a lot of people. And obviously after COVID and what has happened, I think there needs to be some sort of booking system where you choose a time and they allow a certain amount of people in. They cost a fortune in money. I'm going to read the next 2 points because they fall into each other, and I think that this might be a very big topic, so I apologize if I end up going on about this topic for a long time. So, they cost a fortune in public money. Major UK institutions such as the British Museum and the Natural History Museum typically each receive around £40 million of taxpayers' money every year. Yes, they provide wider economic benefits, but it makes those boasts about free entry ring somewhat hollow. Entry fees are pricey even then. Visitors to the 9/11 Museum in New York are expected to pay $24. For the privilege, the Vatican Museum in Rome costs €16 to enter, while tickets for the Hermitage in Amsterdam are €15. The extortionate entry fees for the special exhibitions in London's free museums also deserves a mention. Henry Matisse, the cutouts, for example, currently at the Tate Modern, cost an eye-watering £18. As the author says here, most major UK museums are free of charge, and they are paid by taxpayers' money. Museums tend to charge for entrances or perhaps charge for special exhibitions because there are certain elements that the audience doesn't really particularly know, especially if they're not interested or not into the museum sector as a whole. I personally was one of those people where I didn't want to pay for museums, especially when I was a student. When I had assignments for art history, for example, I needed to go in and see a painting, a particular object or collection, and I didn't want to pay €5 or €10 every time because I wasn't working, and obviously resources for the course and for my degree were very much expensive. Nowadays, I think of it differently. So, museums tend to charge, and sometimes it is expensive, because they need to pay for certain elements for the collection itself. Let me take the Caravaggio exhibition that I went to in 2017, and I believe I paid somewhat the same type of fee, around £15 to £18. Personally, as I went into the website and saw this price, I was like, oh wow, this is bloody expensive for an exhibition about Caravaggio, where obviously in Malta we have a lot of paintings by him. As I studied preventive conservation and learned what conservation is all about, and also studying museum and gallery studies recently, I learned about all the resources that go into taking care of a collection. And nowadays, I believe that certain museums charge an extortionate amount of money just to be able to cover certain costs. Because yes, they receive a lot of money, but half of it goes to wages, perhaps another quarter goes for taking care of the collection, and also taking care of certain properties. Obviously, restoration of certain properties takes a lot of money from the particular institution, and there are so many things that go into an exhibition. So the Caravaggio exhibition, of course the National Gallery in London only has a few pieces of Caravaggio, so they need to bring in more collections. They need to ask private collectors, they need to ask other museums, and they need, of course, to cover transport for both, as well as insurance for both for transport and both for insurance. In any case, the National Gallery has a thief in the night and they decided to take this particular painting by Caravaggio. Then again, they obviously need to create merchandise, which is another source of income for them, but they need to conserve each painting and make sure that it's at a high standard. Of course, it goes into paying wages of the curator, the security staff that are in the exhibition, and other particular areas that as a normal visitor we don't get to see. I had the privilege of going behind the scenes in these museums and to actually see people at work in these museums, and myself as a museum professional, if I want to charge €10 or €15 for an exhibition, I want the visitor to know that those €15 are going into mounts, into printing, for example, photographs, to printing labels, to contacting a conservator to see that everything and every print is stable, to come check the environmental monitoring system, and also to pay for any insurance, pay for security. So there is a lot of elements that go into museums being expensive in our eyes. And there are also the people that work at these institutions. We have curators, we have front of house staff, we have visitor assistants, we have social media, we have all these departments need to be paid. And as a person who saw the growth from not paying for museums and then obviously being a convert technically, it's somewhat satisfying. Then again, most people think that museums just take in money, they do nice and pretty exhibitions and that's it, when there is a whole web of people, processes, procedures and other things. I think that this article also likes to mention this, that if we're paying for something, if I as a visitor am paying for an exhibition, my money is going to be put to good use. It's not necessarily going into someone's pocket, it's basically allowing the museum to create more exhibitions in the future. Okay, I went on way too much there. But yes, I'm planning on doing another video which goes through the whole expensive thing. This was just a mini rant. Most of the objects are kept out of sight. For example, just 1% of the British Museum's collection of 8 million items is on show. There would be more room if they returned those pesky marbles. Yes. So as I said last time, certain museums have a large collection and only a percentage of it is on display. Some are either sensitive or made of materials which are very dangerous for them to be on display. Others are not fit for display and are fragile. For example, glass plate negatives or film are very fragile and cannot be exposed to light for a very long time because they fade. And there are also things that are not necessarily historically important. Museums tend to get a lot of donations, either in the will or else by people. And if I given something, this particular object might not be historically, for my family it might be historically valuable, but for a museum that has a large collection it might just be a fraction of what for me is historically valuable. Therefore, a lot of items sometimes tend to be there just for museums to take care of them, because they would have been otherwise thrown away or else disposed of. Now, this author is speaking about the pesky marbles. The pesky marbles are a very hot topic in the museum world, and I think I might need to do a video on this. But basically, the pesky marbles are referring to the Elgin marbles, or otherwise known as the Parthenon marbles. These were taken in the 19th century by Lord Elgin, and they were taken from the Parthenon in Athens, and they are now displayed in the British Museum in the UK. And there is this debate whether they should be returned to Athens and be part of the Parthenon Museum in Athens. But there is this whole debate of them being in the British Museum. The British Museum are taking good care of them and they do not want to return them. Of course, Athens went through the whole process of building up a museum for them, making the case that they are very much able to take care of them, and obviously the whole tourism shambles of obviously removing these marbles and returning them to Athens. Fun times. You get these kinds of hot topics in the museum world. That is an ongoing debate at the moment that doesn't seem that is going to be resolved anytime soon. Even if the UK leaves the European Union, they don't think they will be able to get them back to Greece, which is a shame, you know. It's a shame. Museums have a lot of collections. Some are relevant, some are not, and certain museums have a lot of collections on display and they don't need to have more. That's why then they have special exhibitions. People have started taking selfies there. There was even a museum selfie day. Yes, there are a lot of initiatives in the museum world that are fun, basically. I have participated in hashtag Museum Selfie Day, and there is also hashtag International Museum Week. There is also hashtag Museum 30, which I'll be doing a video at the end of November. Well, next week. Yes, next week. And yes, there are these sort of fun initiatives in the museum world where we ask people to do fun things. It's all on the internet anyway. The wonderful Google Art project means you can view thousands of masterpieces from galleries around the world in stunningly high resolution without encountering the aforementioned selfie takers. Yes, I agree that a lot of things are on the internet, and museums also actively put collections on their websites to help researchers doing particular subjects. It doesn't beat seeing the real thing in real life. I cannot tell you the emotions I felt of seeing a Van Gogh for the very first time after studying it for 3 years and studying the artist for 3 years. It's the same for Caravaggio. You cannot see the brilliant mind at work if you don't see his paintings in real life. I think what the internet brought was accessibility to everyone. In any case, obviously people, especially those in socially deprived situations, they can access these particular works, which is always good on accessibility, even those who unfortunately cannot go to museums. The gift shops and cafes are a rip-off. No trip is complete without being asked to exit through the gift shop, where you'll be given the option of purchasing overpriced postcards and novelty mugs. Even the 9/11 Memorial Museum couldn't resist offering tasteless souvenirs such as a cuddly search and rescue plush dog, a USA-shaped cheese platter, and the 9/11 Memorial umbrella when it first opened. Okay. I personally go to gift shops and I buy small trinkets or guides or these pocket collections just to have a keepsake. I went to the British Museum and only bought a magnet. I went to the National Gallery and got this pocket guide of some of its collections, and I buy these sort of keepsakes. I buy bookmarks, I buy notebooks, and these sorts of things. I think it's another source of income for these museums. Again, the money is going to other departments in the museum, it's not going into someone's pockets, if I do say so myself. In the terms of the 9/11 Memorial Museum, I think it was a bit tasteless, as the author says, to have such souvenirs in a very dark and somewhat emotional venue. Cafes are great. I honestly, food is overpriced sometimes, but in other situations it's very good. So I tend to pay for museum food. I mean, this is up to preferences. Gift shops, yes, they do have overpriced merchandise, some of them, but others have really nice souvenirs, and some even work with handmade people who make handmade items, and it's always nice to support these organizations. Sometimes the works are fake. So this paragraph, which I'm not going to read all of it, is about forgery basically, and this topic in the museum world is very fascinating. This goes on to knowing where the object came from. So when you bring an object to a museum, the museum staff will ask you from where did you get the item from. Of course, they're not going to just accept the item without knowing its provenance, because in certain types of situations, especially when illegal trading was happening many times throughout the years. Museums don't want to risk not knowing where the object came from. I cannot simply go in with a remote and tell them this is very interesting for a collection, here you have it. They need to know the whole process of me getting that remote. So I would tell them that I got it from a particular store when I bought a TV, and this is the name of the store and this is the date. I cannot go in, give them a remote and just be like, here you go. There are other things that museums need to take into consideration. For example, if the item is forged or stolen, and perhaps even taken from different minorities and other groups. Sometimes the works are modern and ridiculous. And while I was doing some ideas for my upcoming videos, I wanted to do a 101 guide on how to understand modern and contemporary art, because when it comes to modern and contemporary art, it is very difficult to understand what the artist is trying to say, which is great. Of course, there is also the whole debate of them being sold for a lot of money. For example, the example he gives here is this by Barnett Newman, sold for $44 million. Oh, the things I would do with $44 million. And that is it. Those were 21 reasons why I hate museums. Not necessarily I hate museums, but I tend to agree with some of the points here. I tend to somewhat disagree with other points, and I think everyone needs to be heard. I think museums are becoming more open to listening to the people and becoming more community-based, especially when it comes to certain topics and certain exhibitions. It's great to see a difference from 6 years ago. But yes, that is all from my end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, and yeah, hit the notification bell. Perhaps subscribe. What am I saying? Perhaps subscribe. Bye, see you next time. In the meantime, stay safe, wear a mask, and remember, it's nice to be nice. Bye.